Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TCU Presents. We've got a fun show for you tonight. I'm John Denton, your host, and we're, for the next hour, going to celebrate the era and the aura of the great Billy Tubbs, former basketball coach at TCU. Our program tonight brought to you by the TCU Alumni Association, TCU Magazine, and the Block T Association. And tonight we've got a great panel with you. And over the next hour, like I said, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about Coach Tubbs and the 8 great years that he was at TCU. Let me introduce our panel tonight. We've got a great panel tonight as we talk about Coach Tubbs. Number one, we're going to start with Tommy Tubbs, Billy's son. He's a graduate of OU, played for his dad at Oklahoma from 82 to 85. He's a very young man, similar to me. He's part of 2 Big 8 championship game teams. Also played the Elite 8 in 1985. He's joining us from his home in Oklahoma City. He runs Rebound Medical, which has to do with spinal health and sports medicine. Tommy, welcome.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me on tonight. Really appreciate it. And it's great to see all of our TCU family again.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. Also joining us from the drive-thru at Burger King, I'm kidding, but Corey Santee, a native of Flint, Michigan, joins us from his car. He's out running errands, and he is a great player at TCU, class of 07. He also has his master's from TCU, a 4-year letter winner for TCU basketball, 2-time All-Conference USA, and still ranks number 2 all-time in points and assists, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, and in cheeseburgers. So, Corey, welcome to you. Glad you're here with us.
You got a lot of jokes today, don't you?
Yeah, we got a few. And then joining us also on the panel, Jack Hesselbrock, who spent 31 years in the athletic department at TCU as Frank Wendiger's right-hand man, also handled internal operations. He had about 6 different jobs, but one of those was keeping track and trying to keep up with Coach Tubbs. He traveled with the basketball team a lot throughout the years and was a big contributor. For those of you who have seen TCU Magazine, he had a lot of stories, a lot of quotes in there. Jack Hesselbrock, welcome, sir.
Glad to be here, John. It'll be fun.
Yeah, going to be a great time. Reel him in. Saw him at the game the other night at Schollmeyer Arena. One of the all-time greats, an All-American under Billy Tubbs at TCU. Also was on that great team, 1997 and 98, that we're going to talk a lot about because that was a team that won a lot of games and also ran it up on a lot of people. The great Lee Nalen. Lee, welcome.
Appreciate it, man. Glad to see all y'all on here and healthy and breathing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Lee's very active in the game. Played for 7 different NBA teams and now also the coach of Fort Worth Funk. Let's get into it. Tommy, I'm gonna start with you because you probably know this story as well as anyone about starting at the start, the beginning. I mean, Billy Tubbs was an icon, coached for 31 years, had a great career at Lamar, was right in the middle of a great run at Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden he gets a call one day from Frank Wendiger because TCU's looking for a head coach, and the next thing you know, Coach Tubbs is in the mix. And I mean, that was really probably for TCU the first kind of modern, earth-shattering hire that they had made in athletics.
Well, I remember it clearly, John. I was an assistant coach at the time at Lamar University in Beaumont, and I got a call from my dad one afternoon, and he said, "Get a plane ticket to DFW tomorrow and come into Fort Worth. I'm taking the TCU job." And, I was kind of shaking a little bit. I said, "Wait a minute, TCU's a football school." And he said, "No," he said, "the thing that got my attention," he said, "they're really serious about basketball and bringing a quality program." And he said, we're going to make this a national brand, a national basketball program. And he said, "They're really serious about it." And I knew at that time that he was serious. And so I'll never forget flying in and Mel Tucker picking me up at DFW and taking me over and seeing Fort Worth. And I'll never forget walking in Daniel Meyer Coliseum for the first time. And I thought TCU's colors were purple and gray and purple and white. And I walked in and the seats in the arena were green, yellow, and orange. what is this? And so anyway, it was the start of a great run and a lot of fun times and fun people and a great era of college basketball.
Yeah. Well, Jack Hesselbrock, you were involved in that from the other side because you'd been a student at TCU. You'd seen TCU basketball for a long time and Killers teams and some other teams, and you were working in the athletic department. You got a phone call from one of the higher ups in Sadler Hall. Take us through that story. What was happening on campus, because you were the one that had to kind of wrangle the team and pull them together and say, hey, we're going to have a team meeting here.
No, it was, I remember it vividly. There was, obviously it was March, and there was a baseball game going on when we had the old field there beside the Coliseum. And I got the call from up to coach, and I said, when? They said, in about 3 hours. And so most of those guys were out there at that game, and the ones that wasn't were easily, connected. But when I heard the name, in fact, it's funny that Tommy's here. I said, you mean Tommy Tubbs? And it was Provost Kaler. He said, no, it's Billy Tubbs. And I was stunned. I mean, like you said, it was the first.
All right, I think.
And I said, no, you're going to wait until you walk in there.
All right, I think Jack's frozen up on us a little bit. Corey and Lee, let me go to you because, Billy Tubbs was a national name. He'd been known taking teams to the Final Four at Oklahoma. As young players coming up, what? And I'll start with you, Corey. What got your attention? I mean, obviously that's a big name, and you start looking at different schools and places to attend, and that certainly probably changed the light that was shining on TCU at the time.
Oh, for sure. The running gun style. Every time I looked up, coming from Flint, Michigan, and I was to watch Lee, Prince Fowler, and the guys like that before me play, them boys was getting up and down. And what an opportunity. When I came down here on campus, actually, it was my first time visiting the state of Texas. And I saw the arena. The campus was beautiful. Talked to Billy. He was fiery, fired up, and that up and down tempo. It was perfect.
Lee, a lot of appeal for players to play in that sort of a system where you're going to take a lot of shots. You're going to press. You're going to bring it for 40 minutes, and on the offensive end, there's a lot of opportunity for production.
Yeah, the first time I seen TCU, they had Kurt Thomason. Coach Tubbs was the coach. Obviously his senior year. They like Corey said, they was getting up and down. And my thing was growing up in Indiana. We scored a lot, in high school games or whatever. So I wanted to go somewhere where I can score a lot, get more opportunities to show who I was, as a player. Because coming out of junior college, I was an All-American. So I wanted to make sure I go to the right school that I can actually continue to show my skills. And Coach Tubbs was the first one I really, we sat down and kind of hit it off right away. And the first thing he told me, he was like, what's my goals? And I said, man, to be honest, I just want to play in the NBA. That's one of my goals. And he was like, I can get you there. He was like, I promise you I'll give you the ball every time. And if you pass it out, I'm gonna sub you. So it was a perfect marriage from like the first 10 minutes of our meeting. And so it was a no-brainer for me. And like Corey said, he was fiery. So I like coaches like that.
Yeah. Tommy, tell us. I mean, better than anybody. I mean, you get word. As TCU fans, we get word that Billy Tubbs is coming, and I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, it's like the program's been shoved into fifth gear because what's coming. But where did the run and gun style come from? Because you'd mentioned to me that your dad almost ended up going to Oklahoma State, while the great Coach Iba was there, and if that had happened, Billy's style would have probably been a whole lot different than the run and gun.
There's no doubt, and I want to say something to Lee. Lee, I can promise you, my dad never said to me, if you pass it out, you're coming out. He told me if I shot it, I was coming out. Because
Would you say you had a whole different role? Huh?
Well, I played with a guy very similar to you in Wayman Tisdale. And that was, I knew my role was to get the ball inside. But, to John's point, my dad grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And at the time, there was really only 4 high schools in Tulsa. And he went to Tulsa Central High School, which was one of the largest high schools in the United States at the time. And back in those days, in the 50s, Oklahoma State kind of had their run going with Hank Iba, Mr. Iba, and they had averaged in the 50 points, but he probably wasn't good enough to play at Oklahoma State. And an old Texas A&M coach, old Southwest Conference rival, Shelby Metcalf, was a Tulsa Central graduate, a little older than my dad, but my dad was having a hard time finding a place to go, and he ended up at Lon Morris College in Jacksonville, Texas. And he had a coach, O.P. Adams, at the time that was for junior colleges. And Lee, you played junior college. I did too. You know that back in those days, junior college ball was really good, really tough. But Lon Morris averaged 100 points a game back in those days, and he knew at that time that he wanted to play an up-tempo style. And he got to play at Lon Morris with the first 7-footer that the University of Kentucky ever had, a guy named Robert Slim Burrows. It was the first junior college player that Adolph Rupp ever recruited, and that's where he got the inside game, throwing the ball inside and attacking inside out. And if Corey, if you and Lee remember, my dad loved to attack the basket.
Yes.
Both on the offensive glass, on rebounding, on everything.
You better not shoot no jump shots.
Yeah, that's right. You better take it. He said this many times. You better take it to the hook strong. And so, he just liked the up-tempo style. But one of the things, John, that people really didn't realize was how great the defenses were. You had to be able to go on the floor and play defense because people saw them and saw the points, but they didn't realize that the offense was predicated and started off turnovers. Corey,
yeah.
You're one of the top guys in TCU in steals.
Yeah, had to run them passing lanes, had to get the field, run that passing lane, get that ball up and down the court fast as we could. So the anticipation, right. that was fun playing back then.
Yeah, so it was an entertaining style, and back in the 70s and the 80s, his Lamar teams, and they were pushing the ball and up tempo. And I watch teams in the game now, and most of these teams are shooting 45 and 50 times a game. I remember times when we were trying to shoot at 90 and 100 times a game. Create turnovers, get quick, easy baskets, and people would say, "Oh, they're really not playing; they're just rolling the ball out there and shooting it." There was a lot more to that madness than people gave it credit for.
Yeah, Jack, I want to take it off the floor for a minute because the hire was a huge newsmaker across college basketball, and it was a real shift for TCU as well. The tempo not only changed on the floor, but it also changed for you and Frank and the entire administration because Billy had been to the Final Four. There were a lot of things that he knew you had to have that, for the most part, TCU might have not had as part of their basketball program. That changed.
Oh, drastically. And, the good coaches, they push. And they want to get to where their vision is. But I can remember right off, one of the biggest things was to make sure that with our non-conference schedule that we played mostly at home.
That's right.
No reason to go on the road, for some of these games. Let's just, play right here in Daniel Meyer and pay game guarantees. And, the travel was also upgraded. There were quite a few things like that.
How long did those seats stay green, yellow, and orange, Jack?
It wasn't long after that because he had some colorful names for those for those seats.
Yeah.
He
Well,
compared the yellow and the orange to things that I can't really say on here.
well,
Exactly what you mean.
one thing that my dad always wanted was the best, and I'm sure in Corey's recruitment, and I know in Lee's recruitment, and I'm sure when he was talking to the administration at TCU, he wanted the best players. He wanted to travel first class.
Yep.
He was, I mean, he is still to this day. And, as we get older, our parents look a lot smarter, right? And you start understanding some of those things. He still to this day was the ultimate competitor.
Yeah.
And I mean, he would play, and Jack, he'd play anybody, any place, anytime, as long as they would return that game.
Right.
And so, it was all about showtime, and he wanted the players to look clean. He wanted to have a great attitude, a positive attitude. And I appreciate it so much today. And the time at TCU and there were so many people involved. It wasn't just my dad. The great assistant coach,
Speaking of clean, you couldn't even have a goatee.
What's that?
Speaking of clean, you had to have a clean face too.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have no goatee or nothing.
Yeah.
Y'all hear me walking around here with the booty
clean.
chin, man. Have my whole chin feeling naked, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man.
I want everybody to look like me.
Yeah. My buddies back at home calling me like, what you got going on your chin? I had the whole look like a big old booty on my chin, man.
Yeah, right.
Well, look at the way he dressed on the sideline.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dressed to kill.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this, and we kind of in this opening is I've gone back, and my dad was a very private guy personally, and one thing a lot of people don't know is he grew up very poor. He was the 9th of 9 children, and just didn't have a lot of things. And when they did get an opportunity to see TV, the movies that he was watching was Humphrey Bogart and all these people that dressed up with double-breasted suits. And that's I think Corey and Lee, that's why my dad wanted teams clean, because, if guys came and their hair wasn't right or whatever, that he thought they had somewhere more important to go. He's going, where else? This is the show.
Right.
This is the most important thing to do in life right here. And it carried over on the court because, you always hear this a lot of times, if players really like their coach, they'll run through the wall for them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my dad would do things, whether I was growing up or on one of his teams or on his staff, not really understanding the method to his madness, but I do now, because he wanted the best for the players. You may not understood his approach at the time. I cannot tell you in the last 2 years how many people have called and said, I didn't understand at the time what he was trying to tell me, but I understand now. Yeah. And, it's amazing. And the teams performed that way. It was, everybody played hard. You had to play, and he played the best guys. If you were the best player, you were going to play.
Yeah, Tommy, it's funny you say that. I know Lika talks about this also. When you said we couldn't understand it then, but understand it now, and being on this side and coaching and mentoring these young men, we hear ourselves saying some of the same thing he was telling us. Like, you got to go out there with a fire in your eye, with a sense of urgency. And we would think like, Coach, I'm ready to play, but now we understand the body language of it all from the outside. It don't look like you tuned in, don't look like you engaged. And Coach did a great job of making sure, like I said, he was fiery. But players like me and like Lee said, I needed that. I needed someone to tell me when didn't look like I was ready to play, when it was time to go out there and perform. And I take all that to Coach Tubbs. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. That's
hey John.
To piggyback what.
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to finish that story. You talk about being the best. Road trip that I remember, and of course, when we got back, there were some questions from the administration that I had to fudge on. But we had some problems getting up to Missouri one year, and Steve McLean came down and he said, there's a alumni over in Dallas that has a plane at Love Field. And he said we could have it, and it's a really reduced rate. He was going to sort of comp some of it to us. And I thought, well, that's great. So we get over there, And this is an old, well, I'm not saying an old Southwest plane, but it had been entirely gutted. And the Mavericks were using it. And it had sofas and tables, and they had a place in the back where you could sit and, you know, play cards, dominoes, whatever. And the flight attendant comes up and she says, "Y'all are a lot nicer than Bon Jovi. We flew them last week."
Wow.
And I was going, how is this going to fly back at Fort Worth? But we had a great flight up and back, and the guys enjoyed it.
Well, that Lee, you were going to say something, I think.
No, I was just going to talk about what Corey was talking about, how we really didn't understand what coach, the language it was more of the language that we kind of like echo now to kids, is telling them, like, go out there, play hard. You know, you never know when it's your last game. Play for your family, for the front and your last name. He was always, you know, making sure that we was at our best. He never, you know, showed our weaknesses on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that actually stood out to me, is that he cared as a coach more than just, you know, you going to help him win. He always tried to make you shine.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, Lee. And one of the things that I realize about my dad now more than ever, as I watch the games today, I remember, you know, in the 70s when I came out of high school and was getting ready to go to college, most of the college games at that time were being played in the 70s, you know, 60s and 70s. And he just had a brand and a style that he wanted to play. And people told him, you know, that's the thing we all go through in life, whether it's basketball or business or anything. There's times in your life where people tell you you can't do something or you can't succeed. And his mantra was always, watch me. I'm going to get the players that I need and the players that can play the way that we want to play, the defenses and the offenses, and we're going to win. We're going to change the game of basketball. And that's really what happened in the 80s and in the 90s with your teams. Corey, coming out of Flint, Michigan, you were one of the best players to ever come out of there. And there's a lot of really good players coming out of Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard a lot of things in your recruiting process. You know, the thing that I really appreciate is, whether it was basketball or our family or life, if my dad had something in his mind and he was going to do it, he was going to do it. And you better be a part of it and come with him, or he's going to go ahead and, you know, and finish the job. But I couldn't be more proud of you guys and all those teams at TCU.
Well, I appreciate that, Tommy.
Yeah, I want to mention we got a. Go ahead, Tom.
I see a comment from Chris.
C. Hall.
I see a comment here from Chris Hall. My goodness, that guy put a lot of players. He's part of the glue that holds this whole. He and Jack and Joan are part of the glue that hold this all together.
Yes.
I don't have many nights, me and Jack. I'm pretty sure his wife thought he was cheating on him. He was with me so many nights trying to get me right.
C. Hall was the godfather of basketball.
He was.
Man, for real.
We're gonna do it.
Y'all. Still to this day, we talk. I'll text him here and there.
We're gonna do a whole nother show, and it'll be just Chris Hall. We're just gonna wind him up and let him go. He's got about 1,000 stories. So.
I'm sure now that he's retired, he can tell some of them.
Oh,
he can.
Yeah, he can tell a few.
One thing real quick, John, let me say this about Chris Hall. You know, one thing that my dad did that a lot of people may not have understood, but it could be Christmas Day and you guys were practicing. You know, it could be Thanksgiving and you were practicing. So I know C. Hall and everybody's families missed a lot of holidays because of basketball.
Right.
And things have kind of changed now a little bit, you know. But Chris Hall, he kept a lot of guys and a lot of people together. So thank you, C. Hall.
Yep, C. Hall's one of the all-time greats right there. Corey and Lee, I want to ask, because y'all talked about, you know, kind of the off-court environment. You couldn't have a goatee. You had to be clean shaven, and, you know, coach required a lot of you. You don't score 110, 115 points a game without a lot of work. And, you know, as with most teams, you know, the games are about 5% of the total effort that you put in. A lot of practice time. What was the practice environment like with Billy Tubbs?
You go ahead, Lee.
No, it was crazy. I never seen nothing like before in my life. You know, coming out of junior college, you know, like Tommy said, junior college, it's some roughnecks in there. Like, you really get after it, and you see a lot of talent, and you see a lot of guys that don't make it to D1. You know, I played against a lot of guys that, you know, flunked out of JUCO. So when I got to D1, the practices was way more intense. You know, coach was fired up. You know, he had me on the ball. I was trapping. You know, almost threw up a few times the first practice. Man, he had us on the track. Man, it was just like continuously running. Like, every time we did a drill, okay, on the line, suicide. So it was just, we never stopped running. And then I was like, man, I picked the wrong fucking school. Like, I shouldn't have came here. This is crazy.
Man.
You know, so I'm like, after practice, but I never in my life had my feet smoking, burning hot from one practice. So I went up to McClain, Steve McClain. He's like, hey, how you doing? How you doing, big fella? How you like practice? I'm like, Coach, I don't know about this. I said, Coach, this is track. This ain't basketball. He said, hey, calm down, big fella. You're gonna love it when we start playing. Come on, big fella, stay with us. Don't get upset now.
Hey,
so it was just so much running.
Yeah, I see James Joe, that 6 a.m. mile. I will never forget that. I'm coming from Flint, Michigan. All we really did, throw the balls out and play. And we got down there with the practices, we battling, and everybody is stronger and faster. And then we got a full 2.5. I ain't gonna say how long we go. I don't want to get nobody in trouble, nothing like that. But we went to long practices. Next thing you know, all in the morning at 6 a.m. I would never forget. I sat on my bed in my creep hall. Man, it was about 5:15. I looked at us, said, man, I did not sign up to run track. Do I really want to do this? It was so dark. I said, I was so tired from practice the other day. I said, man, do I really want to do this? They got my butt up and did it, but it was intense, but we got better for it.
So, Tommy, y'all all jump in. So, I've heard these stories about, you know, you'd run the mile, and then you'd also break it up where you were running a lap, and then the next lap you ran the curves, and then you sprinted the straights, and I mean it was all to help, you know, get you ready to, you know, to run and gun for 40 minutes, right?
That's right. So, but his whole thing was, you know, and I know you guys will remember this, but my dad used to run. He would run 3 to 4 miles a day every day himself. And I remember him doing that in the 60s. So he was doing it before it was cool. But if you remember, he'd always say, I know that I'm going to be the best conditioned coach in America, but I'm going to have the best conditioned team. And so that's, you know, guys, let me tell you, through my playing time with him to yours and beyond, guys, every guy would say, we didn't come here to run track, but when the game started, the game was easy.
Yeah, well.
So we would watch guys today. Many guys have their hands on their knees and pulling on their pants, and they're tired. Oh, you've got to have mass substitutions, and we're going to substitute all 4 guys to bring, because guys have to rest and they're too tired. He wanted to have the best conditioned team, and when October 15th started, you were conditioned. And so, John, I forgot what the other part of your question was, but
we're just talking about the types of workouts on the track, because I mean I've heard Corey talk about, I've heard a lot of guys that played for Coach Tubbs talk about, I mean, just run them into the dirt.
Yeah, so that brought back my thought is, you know, you'd go out there and you'd do a 6-minute mile, right, for the warm up, and if guys couldn't make the 6-minute mile, you did it again. And then you'd line up and you'd run. Every day had a kind of a different madness to it. You know, that you'd run a 40, you might run 10 40-yard dashes or 10 100-yard dashes, or you'd run a 220. It was all for endurance. And then at the end, you would have to run another 6-minute mile. And so you run the first one and you think, wow, we're through. We're done. And they'd say, get on the line. you know, and that's what, because we couldn't start practice before October 15th back in those days. A little different than today. And so then you'd run your sprints, and then there would be another one. And on the easy days, if you guys remember, we'd run the 12-minute mile or the 12-minute run.
Yeah.
You had to do.
Yeah. He tried. It was really 2 miles. He tried to be slick.
That's
Yeah,
right.
he was trying to be slick.
Easy run.
But that was how you know, with the way that he wanted to play, up tempo. And I see guys on here, James, he says a mile warm up, then sprint workout, mile intercept. That's what it was, you know. And so I think, you know, when we finally got to October 15th and it was time to start practicing, you already had some confidence built up and some camaraderie built up within the team that you're pulling together. You know, the big guys usually had the hardest time with the runs because, you know, that sometimes they'd come in not in shape. And, you know, that was things that as the program went along, guys would start talking in the summer. Have you been running? No, I have. You know, you dreaded coming. But that was one of his goals, was to always be the best conditioned team in the country.
Yeah. Well, and Coach Tubbs was always challenging everybody, whether it was players or officials or Jack. I mean, I know I keep coming back to this, but I know that Coach Tubbs came at you and Frank. I mean, there were some conversations y'all probably weren't used to ever having until Billy got on campus.
No, another one I can remember was, you know, the use of summer school, to having the guys there all summer. You know, that hadn't been really a thing around the country, but when he came in, it was like, well, I want my guys here all summer, and at least part of it. And I said, well, you know, we're in pretty good shape academically. And he said, well, that's not why I want him here. He said, I want him here to work out and be around each other. He said, the plus is to get the extra credit, but he said, we need the continuity.
Yeah.
And, you know, the brotherhood sort of.
Yeah, to your point, Jack, and I know Corey and Lee know this. We've played on many teams and been around many teams. Usually the teams that are most successful are the teams that really like each other.
Right.
They want to hang out with each other.
Starting the summertime, though.
Yeah, and then you're on teams where guys don't want to be around each other, and those are just miserable teams, you know. And so that's what it built, was it built togetherness. He loved guys that hung out together and wanted to be around each other. But you know, and a lot of those teams at TCU had that. Another thing we haven't talked about, and you know, you mentioned in the open, John, about Lee playing on 7 different NBA teams. You know, it's kind of in this day and age where we've got conference realignment and all that. What really kind of amazes me is, and I would be interested to hear what Corey has to say about this, but, you know, when my dad first came to TCU, they were in the Southwest Conference. And that was for 2 years, and then it went to the WAC. And when Corey came in, I think it was Conference USA.
Yep, it was Conference USA.
Freshman year. So Lee was on the only team I think my dad ever had that was undefeated in conference play at 14-0 in the WAC. And then Corey, how did they recruit you to come in? Because I think they were leaving the WAC coming into Conference USA, right?
Yeah, that was the big thing. I mean, you know, late Michigan and Michigan State got on me late, but so I felt disrespected. Like, I've been in you guys' home backyard this whole time. And then Rob Flasker came, and since my sophomore year, wanted to get me down to Texas and play. And that was a big selling point because Conference USA had Memphis, they had Cincinnati, you know, they had Louisville, they had Marquette. So I'm like, this is a hell of a conference. And plus, you know, Cincinnati is not far from home. My mom is from the Cincinnati area. She'll get a chance to see me play, be running gun. And I just thought it would be a chance for me to flourish amongst some of the best competition in the country. So that was a huge selling point for me.
And I think you came in, and probably your freshman year, you averaged close to 15 a game, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yep, close to 15.
Yeah.
Put the ball in my hand, and they trusted me. I mean, it was some growing pains, but just working hard, like I say, every day in practice, and I was in some of the best shape of my life. And plus playing in Flint, that was around that time when the Meccas of basketball. So right. There wasn't no stage too big for me. So once I got here, I was just ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
By the way, Flint, Michigan tonight, low of 6 degrees.
Do not miss it. Do not miss it.
In case you're wondering, Corey, I know you're missing it tonight.
No.
I looked at it earlier. I was like, oh my gosh.
Hey, Lee, you know that's one thing they always tell me, like when it get cold down here. Oh, you should be used to this. You like it? I said, I do not like being cold. Man. I got up out of there for a reason.
Right. Like, man, it's the reason why we left, right?
Well, one thing I want to say, you know, obviously there were many times that the Tubbs family was very proud of Corey and Lee and other players, you know, but I know one of the most proud times when Jack really stepped up and was able to get my parents to come back. My dad's health we had gotten a bad diagnosis in 2015, but when he was able to come back for Kurt Thomas jersey retirement, I know that how proud he was and how lucky he was to come in that first year. And there sits a guy named Kurt Thomas. And, you know, Kurt's one of the few guys that has led the nation. You know, there were only two, and I think Trey Young might be the third, but I think Kurt led the nation in scoring and rebounding his senior year. Mm-hmm. And then he's had one of the greatest careers in NBA history, you know, but that was a very proud time. And so I know that there's another guy that's on this panel that one day maybe we'll see that name up in those rafters.
That's you, Lee. You gotta be, baby. It's only right, big dog.
All right, I'm gonna put Tommy and Lee and Corey on the spot because everybody knows. You know, they saw Billy from the stands and would see him work officials and you know, gosh, back when he was at OU, he even got on the mic one time and encouraged the fans where officiating was concerned. But what are some of your favorite Huddle stories and things that he might have said to motivate you? Because I think that's the stuff that I think if you could mic the coaches, you need and they could hear, fans could hear everything that's said in the huddle. And there's certain times in games when it's crunch time, you know, there's got to be some things that are burned in your brain that he said, you know, during a timeout, and you thought, wow. I mean, okay.
I mean, you want me? You got it, Lee, or what? What you want
to do? Go, Corey.
Oh, I just remember one time I come to the huddle after a game. I think he was playing DePaul or somebody like that, and he comes in. He says, "Hey, son, are you there? Your body here, but I don't think your mind is here, son. I don't see the fire in your eye. I don't see the fire in your eye. I need that fire in your belly." I said, "Man, okay." He just looked at me. He got me going up there. But now, like we talked about earlier, I did not understand what he meant. Like, Coach, I'm ready to play. But now I totally understand what he meant. Like, your body here, but your mind is not here. So I need you to lock in and get ready to go.
Yeah.
How about you, Lee?
So Coach, I mean, I really didn't want to tell this story, but you know, since Coach is
just keep it clean.
He's resting easy. So I was messing around in the game, and we was playing. It was a non-conference game, and to be honest, I didn't feel like playing, but I had like the first 6-7 points, and I guess Coach Sells didn't like how I scored them, so he called a quick timeout, and everybody looking at each other like, what's going on? You know, we blowing, almost ready to blow them out. So Mike Jones, Malcolm, Prince, they all went to the sit down, and so you know how a coach walking towards you, and you don't want to just bump into him. You want to try to get around him, but he wasn't having it with me. He was like, oh, he stood right in front of me, and man, he pinched my side. He said, "You don't fucking pick it up, I promise you're going to pay for it tomorrow." I said, "What?" After that, man, I never ever looked at Coach Rome. I never said nothing, crossed to him, nothing. Whatever he told me to do, I did it, because I was after the when he grabbed me like that, he got my full attention, and after that, man, he had no more problems out of me after all on court. I was so shook up.
I'm scared to even know what would happen if that happened today.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right, exactly.
Tommy, you were playing for your dad at OU. I mean, right when kind of the roller coaster got over the top of the hill. I mean, you were in those kind of mid 80 teams that really kind of got the thing going toward 88.
Yeah.
You know
You're very kind, John. I got there in '82, so that kind of the early part. But
Yeah, but
I know my recruitment was different. I can promise you than Lee and Corey's. It's a really good thing that I knew his wife really well. But my dad told me coming out of junior college. My dad told me, it was interesting. I actually had some letters in junior college from TCU. I think I can't remember if it was Summerfield, Coach Summerfield. But my dad told me, he said, "You can come to Oklahoma. I'd love to have you because as a coach's kid growing up in high school, my dad didn't get to see me play a lot. He was on the road coaching, and in junior college it was the same way." But I have a little side story real quick. One of my teammates at Lon Morris my sophomore year was a guy named Nelson Peterson. And Nelson was out of Key West, Florida, and one of Nelson's sons is Adrian Peterson. And so, we kind of recruited Nelson, and that was back in the day that guys in junior college would go after their freshman year. But anyway, when I sat down and talked to my dad, he said, "You can come here, but you're not going to play." Well, I'm also a Tubbs too. And when people tell me I can't do something, I try to prove them wrong. So I went in, but he said, "You can come. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to win a lot of games. We got a guy coming in." I'm sure it was as excited as he was when Lee came in, because my dad's offense always centered around a really good post offense. And you attacked the inside, and then it opened up the outside. But he said, "We got a really good guy coming in named Wayman Tisdale, and we're going to win a lot of games. You can come. It's going to be fun." Well, I redshirted my first year. I didn't get to play a lot my junior year, but I learned a lot, and I got to start my senior year. And it was a lot of fun. But I knew I wasn't to shoot the ball; it was to throw it inside. So I think that one thing that he did a really good job of is everybody knew their role. And that's really important on teams, is to know what your role is. Are you the scorer? Are you the passer? Corey was able to do it all. Lee was a great scorer, great rebounder, but Corey could defend. Corey, where are you with TCU in assist?
Second.
Second. You're second. Think about this. Corey Santee is the second leading scorer in TCU history. It's amazing.
Right.
And I remember my dad also telling many times, your days in college are going to be the greatest days of your life.
That's true.
And when you look back at it, and that's what Corey and Lee and we all try to tell the kids that are there now playing, is embrace this time and enjoy it, because there's a lot of other great things out there in life, but the time that those kids are at TCU right now are the times of their life.
Yeah.
And it goes by so fast.
They don't understand it till it's over.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, I look at things differently because I went through the same things as a player and then as a coach with my dad that you may not understand at the time, but let me tell you something. He was big on loyalty, and he was big on believing in what he was doing. He wanted everybody all in. And, that's the thing I think he saw when he talked to Coach Windigger back in 1994 when he was talking about the job. It's what he saw in Dr. Tucker. And on down the list, the administration, Jack, you were a huge part of that. Gosh, if it wasn't for Jack, that may be why you stayed at TCU.
No, that's for sure. For sure. Cause I almost left.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Rick Pitino was calling my dad, and I'm like, ugh.
I'm glad there wasn't the portal then.
No, yeah.
Right.
I can't play for Coach Tubbs. And Jack, man, I'm always be appreciative and thankful for you, Jack. So I want to let you know that while you're here, man. Just appreciate everything you've done for me, man. And I'm really, 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 truly grateful for you, my friend.
That's great.
I think we spent, a couple hours in a hotel lobby or a side room with Marie and Nolan Santee, and I was doing my best sales job to keep you there.
Yeah. Lee, nowadays, these kids, they like to bounce around and stuff nowadays, Lee, but I just felt like, man, they believed in me. My first out-of-state scholarship, I love the style of play. Then I started making brothers and friends with my teammates, and I couldn't leave them.
The loyalty.
Yeah, I couldn't.
All right, I want to ask you guys.
I don't know how these cats need to pick up and leave.
Yeah.
All right, when you go on the road, Billy was always a lightning rod for opposing fans, and everybody jump in. I mean, Jack is an administrator traveling with the team. I mean, when he walked out on the floor on the road, you didn't have to look. You knew when he got on the floor because they were on him. You could hear the boos and whatnot. But Lee and Corey and Tommy, as a player, how much easier did that make you or make it for you? Because he kind of took the attention away and let you as players, concentrate and go about your business.
Oh, well, for me,
I was, to be honest.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
To be honest, man, I was actually kind of pissed off because, y'all disrespecting my coach and we coming to y'all gym. I said, man, I'm putting 50 on them.
Yeah.
Like every gym that booed coach, man, I swear, I promise you, I was going at everybody. I said, okay, y'all want to boo my coach? Okay, watch this. We're going to beat y'all by 60.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's just a family, man. Like Lee said, no matter how hard coach was on us individually or as a team, when you go on the road, no, we all in this together. So if you're gonna boo my coach, this time, we got our coach back, and we about to show you ain't gonna boo our coach. We about to step this up.
One thing he understood was show business, and he knew, you had to create interest. Especially, I grew up in the state of Texas. I grew up in a time where I couldn't go to summer camps in summertime, but the UIL, University Interscholastic League in the state of Texas, was trying at the time, and it's well documented, we're trying to get all high school players to play football. And so, my dad was a basketball guy, and he loves football. But to create attention for the basketball program, there are things that he had to do. And, one thing I watched today, and I watched the games, and I think a lot of times that the coaches that are out there think the game's about them. And the thing that I understand and appreciate now about my dad is he took some of the attention was on him. It took the pressure off the players, and he let the players play. The game is about the players. It's not about the coach, and so, you got to let the players play. And he understood that. And what amazes me is he understood that back in the 50s, and the 60s, and it carried through, when you look at the accolades, if you go through the TCU Media Guide and you look at the scores, John, I know you did that, but I think the top 10 scores in school history were from this era. The highest scoring games were from this era. Kirk Thomas was able to lead the nation in scoring and rebounding. There's only 3 guys in the history of college basketball that have done that, to lead 2 categories. And it's just amazing. And, you look at that 87, 88 team. That was, I think, the winningest team in school history. They win 14 games. When I look at the history of TCU basketball, and my dad was there 8 years, I think he's the only coach in school history that had a winning record in 8 straight years. It makes me go back, and at the time when you're going through that, you don't realize all these things are going on. But now that you're able to go back and reflect, and it's really why today, when we're able to all be together, you really should appreciate the people you're with today. And because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so, it's better when everybody's pulling together.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, that 97, 98 team, I went back and looked today. They won 27 games, 27-6, 14 of the 27 wins, they scored over 100 points. And the other funny story I remember, and Jack will remember this, is Billy's first year at TCU, 12 of the games they scored more than 100 points. And a lot of those, I think 10 of the 12 were at home. And the physical plant people, after the first game, had to get the scoreboard lowered because they had to make sure all the bulbs worked on the 3rd digit. Because up to that point, I don't think TCU had ever
using all 3 levels. You're using all 3 levels, huh?
Change out the bulbs so that the scoreboard, would appropriately show, 110 or 112. They never used a 3rd digit.
That's very true.
Right.
John, you've got to reflect on James Jones's story here on the screen, because that is a true story.
All right, game at Princeton where
Corey, were you in that game, Corey?
I remember it gets ejected early in the half. He leaves, go back to the hotel, change clothes.
So he put on a disguise and came back.
And came back. Yeah, got kicked out of the game. Bought a ticket and came back in.
I tell you what, James Jones' memory is amazing. Like, he has all the.
Oh yeah. Man.
I tell you, there was a lot of pre-game stuff that went along with that game because Coach had told myself and Coach Wendiger that he had no intention of going up there and coaching that game because the game had been moved, I think, from a Wednesday to a Thursday for ESPN, and he wasn't consulted. And, you know, it gave him a disadvantage, I think, for Saturday or something to that effect. And, you know, we kind of laughed it off. And as the week went on, Steve McLean came down. He said, Jack, I'm telling you, he's not going up there. And I was on the trip, and of course, this was a well-known aspect of the trip that he didn't want to be up there for that night. And when he got kicked out early, I got a call, obviously back at the hotel, that said, "Do you think any of that was intentional?" And I said, "Oh no, he and the referee had it out. You know, there wasn't anything intentional about that." But there's no doubt he was not going to coach that game.
One thing I want to slip in here real quick. I know my mom's watching tonight, and you know she wants me to say hi to all you guys and all the TCU.
Hey, Pat.
And she's doing great. It's been a tough time. We really miss my dad and all the things. What a big personality and but you know we all have to go on. He's in a better place. Gosh, there's just so many people that you know. One we kind of mentioned earlier, but Joan Owens in the basketball office, we all had such a relationship with on whether it was she was sending me media guides or getting tickets and taking care of things. I mean, I don't know how many coaches that Joan was there for, but I bet it was a bunch.
Yeah.
She did a lot for a lot of people.
She was up through actually Coach Dixon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. First couple of years of Jamie's tenure here. That's right. Yeah.
And so, you know, so many good people. You know, and Brandon Aldrich, I know, is on here. And Brandon's done a great job over the years of keeping people connected and, you know, a part of this family.
Yeah, he definitely has.
And a lot of people have called in today. I got a call, Tommy, this morning from Clifton Morris, who's down in Sant Destin playing golf. And you know, if Billy was here, he'd be down there with Clifton hanging out, and Cliff's watching tonight. And he told a story. He said, he goes, Billy got hired. I took him out to Shady Oaks, and we're playing golf. Well, Clifton realized that Billy was deaf in his left ear as a result of the accident when he got hit when he was jogging at OU. And Clifton says, we're rolling along and we're playing golf, and we get to the fifth tee, and I finally say, are you ever going to talk to me? And Billy says, I was wondering if you were ever going to say anything. He said, and Cliff said, what's wrong with you? He says, I'm deaf in my left ear. He said, well, from here on out, you drive the cart and I'll sit on your right side. And he said, and then they got along great and they were lifelong friends.
That's great. It's probably along about that time. I remember my dad loved to play golf. He competed at everything. It didn't matter if it was bowling or whatever he was playing, but golf, he hated to lose. And Corey and Lee know that. I mean, he just with a passion. And he was always going to outwork everybody. But on the golf course, I had a hole-in-one here in Oklahoma City years ago, and every time we'd play this hole, I'd remind him, hey, how many hole-in-ones have you had? And he'd go, I don't want to hear that anymore, and blah, blah, blah. And so he takes the job at TCU in 1994, and there's an alumni event. And my phone rings, and it's him, and it's during the day, and I answer the phone, and he said, you know that hole-in-one you had? And I said, yeah. And he goes, we're tied. I said, okay. I said, did you win a car? What did you win? He said, I won a pen and pencil set. And so, on the competitive side of things, he went on to have another hole-in-one, and that was a thing that he always told me is, I had you doubled on that, and mine and my wife Ann's anniversary is on October 27th, and we were getting ready we had just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and my dad passed away on November 1st, just a few days later. But one of the things that he said to me as I got ready to leave that night, he said, "Now, how many years have you and Ann been married?" And I said, 30 years. And he goes, "Always remember this. I've got you doubled." Because he and my mom had been married 60 years.
Wow.
And they were married 62 years, best friends. Just all those games that my dad coached, Corey, all the shots you made and missed, and Lee, the shots you made and missed. And my mom was right there along for the show. My mother's seen more basketball games than most people.
Well, I can think about.
Yeah.
And so, but my sister Taylor is also on the broadcast tonight. And she wants to send her love. One of the pictures, I have two daughters, Hannah and Katie. They're 26 and 29, and I have a niece, Callie, that's 27. And one of my favorite pictures of all times is probably from about the 99-2000 season. And they're in their TCU cheerleader outfits, and they're probably about 9 years old and 6.
Wow.
And I sent that along tonight, but the quality was so bad we couldn't put it up. But man, such great times there in Fort Worth, and all the people. And I wrote down a list of people today that just, it just goes on and on. How can we not talk about Mike Jones and Malcolm Johnson and Byron Waits and James Finney and Ryan? Gosh, it just helped me.
Ryan
Carroll.
Lee, I think, matter of fact, the NCAA tournament, I think y'all practiced at Daniel Meyer, and you were getting ready to drive up to Oklahoma City, and Ryan Carroll turns his ankle in practice.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Man, it started our trip off all bad.
And you played Florida State the next game. I think you had a really good game, but it was kind of just like running in place. Just couldn't get.
Yeah, we missed him. Yeah, we definitely missed him on that trip. And I actually really forgot that he had twisted his ankle, but I do remember that he didn't play, so we could have used him.
And Dennis Davis, what a great player, Dennis Davis.
Yeah, I wonder what's up with Dennis.
And then Prince Fowler. You talk about Prince Fowler and his cousin Thomas McTeer, and Steve McLean. I think Steve was pretty influential, and you, Lee, and Rob Flasca with you, Corey, and Brian Fish, and all those guys. You just going down the list. I mean, it was a magical time there at TCU. And John, I really appreciate you keeping us connected. Jack,
Sure.
One of the most touching things for my family was the day on November 4th. John, you sent me that picture and an email about TCU lowering the flag in honor of my dad. I've thought about bringing that up all day today, and I get emotional about it today.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was the
nice.
right thing to do. It needed to happen, and I mean, Billy was such a big part of TCU, and I think a lot of and I want to ask each of you what he meant to you and how he helped you reach your goals and where you are now. But I think a lot of what people love about Billy when he came to TCU was that he was like, all right, TCU, we're going to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. And, TCU can win, and we can be good, and we will be a pain in everybody's neck. When we walk in their gym, they know we mean business. And he helped change the athletics attitude of TCU in his time at TCU. There's no doubt about it. And it ran all through the athletic department.
Yeah.
Corey, how about you? What do you think of? I know day in, day out, you think about Coach Tubbs. How did what you learned from him help you get where you are now?
I always remember he told me, prepare today like you're playing in the championship game tomorrow. So just, everything is always pinpointed. You're working hard for the goals that you're trying to reach. So that's what stuck with me, and I try to share with some of the boys now. Just prepare today like you're playing in the championship game tomorrow. And if you prepare like that, you'll be ready for whatever comes your way.
Yeah. Lee, how about you?
You know, me and Coach, we know, a lot of people don't know this, but me and Coach, we used to hang out all the time. I used to go to the house instead of being in the dorms. I used to go over there and, you know, watch games with him. PT cooked for us. Well, basically, he turned me. He really taught me how to be competitive, you know, on and off the court. I mean, basically, he's saying that, you know, life is a competition. You know, he's like, and you know, playing for him always made me realize that, you know, he wanted the best out of us, and he always said, always prepare yourself and treat every situation like it's your last. And he said, give it your all, and whatever happens, you know, you can live with the result. So just turning me from a young man to a man, and really just inspiring me to be, you know, coaching, you know, trying to get into coaching now. So, nobody knows this but Tommy, but the last couple of weeks, you know, I spent some time with him. We drew up plays and stuff. We talked basketball. We talked about life. Talked about, you know, family, my wife, everything. So I mean, he's more than a coach to me. Every day I think about him. I don't go a day without, you know, thinking about it or talking to him. You know, while I'm driving or whatever. You know, I'm still getting emotional right now just because he was really the first coach that really believed in me, and really put TCU on his back and on my back. And, you know, after every game I used to tell him, I got you, coach. You know, we're going to do this together. You know, win or loss, I got you. After every game we talked before I left the gym. So he's really a father to me. You know, he's not my coach. You know, he's like a father figure to me. So I always be thankful, because without him I wouldn't be, you know, Lee Nalon. You know, he helped me raise 54 to a higher standard, and basically all the kids, you know, everyone here that I train now, I try to tell them, you know, I learned from the best, and I'm gonna try to give it back to you guys.
How about you, Jack, as an administrator? Obviously, he had an impact on your career, and you know, he's probably a guy like you'd never worked with prior to that.
No. You have to remember, when Coach Tubbs came, I'd been at TCU only 6 years. So I was still pretty wet behind the ears. And here was this, you know, really an icon in college basketball. I mean, let's be honest. And what I will never forget is when we would go on the road or teams would come in. It used to really happen at, you know, like at the NIT or the Western Athletic Conference, you know, where you'd have these tournament meetings, and he would invite me to come over and sit at the table with him. And it, you know, people like Jerry Tarkanian and Rick Pitino and John Calipari, and, you know, Billy would always introduce him, you know, or introduce myself to him, and, you know, this is the basketball guy here at TCU. And, you know, he didn't have to do that, obviously, and I wouldn't have expected it. But, you know, if you were in the boat, I think somebody mentioned it earlier about loyalty. If you were in the boat, you know, rowing the same way as him, there wasn't too many people more loyal. And he always treated me great.
Yeah. Tommy, we're going to give you the final word. One question I've got for you, because we used to, when TCU first got in the Big 12 and they'd come up to play in Norman, and we'd see you and Billy at the games. Who did he cheer for? Was he? I mean, both those places love Billy Tubbs, and what did that put him in a tough spot from the standpoint of who he was pulling for?
Well, I don't know. I think he was pulling for and cheering for who he was coaching, you know. And I really think in those days after he retired, and I think he really took a different kind of enjoyment out of the game. And you know, one thing that he said to me many times, and it's so good to see Lee on here and Corey as former players. And it's good to watch Corey's progress in the program and what he's contributing, because it's Corey's program. Corey was a player there. He graduated from TCU. Lee is still connected to the program. And that's one of the things, sometimes we tend to kind of wander off, you know, and do our own thing. But that basketball program will always be the players' program. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who the coach is from year to year. And it's about the players that played there. And in this case with Coach Dixon, you know, he's embraced the past, which is great to see. but he was a player there also. So it's his program. But, I don't know that I really answered your question, but I know going to the games, he always took interest in the OU TCU game, but he wanted the best out of for both teams and both programs. And that was his goal, was to elevate it and make it better than it was. He taught me that in life. If somebody loans you a car, return it clean, the inside and out, with a full tank of gas. And so give it to them better than what you left it. And I think I can sit here tonight and feel that the program was better because he was there, he and my mom and the staff and everybody that was there. It was a team effort. It wasn't just my dad.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Billy elevated TCU basketball 8 winning seasons in a row. That's a school record, and all of the wins, the big wins, the 100-point scoring wins, and just the overall excitement. And again, as I said earlier, injecting into the TCU culture that TCU could and TCU could win. That's a big gift to all of us, and we're forever grateful to Billy and the entire Tubbs family, Tommy.
Well, thank you. And thanks for all the kind words, guys. It means a lot to us. And we're following and pulling for the Horned Frogs. So, Corey, let's get this one Saturday.
We got it. We need it, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Yep, Frogs back in action at 11 o'clock at Schulmeyer Arena Saturday morning against LSU. It's the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Look forward to seeing everybody at Schulmeyer Arena for that one. Our thanks tonight, thanks to our panelists, Tommy Tubbs, Corey Santee, Lee Nalen, and Jack Hesselbrock. Also,
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to Rob Berline from the TCU Alumni Association, from TCU Magazine, Caroline Collier and Tricia Spence. This has been a fun hour talking about the great Billy Tubbs. You've been watching TCU Presents as we remember the great Billy Tubbs. We'll see you at Schulmeyer Arena Saturday morning at 11. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night, and go Frogs.
Love you guys.
Go Frogs.
Thank you. Love you.